During the next half hour or so, I will be introducing you to In the U.S.A. For this session, you'll need to have your teacher's edition of In the U.S.A. in front of you, and you may also want to gather some sticky notes or tabs to mark key pages in your book. If you need to retrieve these items, you can pause the recording now and then click Resume when you're ready. In the U.S.A. is a comprehensive and innovative program for teaching English to elementary language students who are newcomers to the United States. In the U.S.A. provides dynamic language development with ample practice in generating and manipulating new vocabulary within authentic communicative tasks. In the U.S.A. also aligns with the K-5 language literacy and content of National Geographic Reach, so your students can easily transition to this program. Let's go over our outcomes for today's session. By the end of our time together, you will be ready to use In the U.S.A. to identify the program components. You will be able to understand the instructional path and lesson structure. You will know how to use the assessment tools to inform your instruction. Our goal is to increase your knowledge of In the U.S.A. so you are equipped to go into your classroom tomorrow and begin your instruction. Let's learn a little bit more about this program. In the U.S.A. delivers engaging and authentic activities that develop basic language and vocabulary skills for your students. It uses explicit early literacy skills instruction that is research-based. Provides many scaffolds and lots of visual support for your non-English speaking students. It also includes multiple measures to assess your students' progress and identify skills that they have mastered and skills which need reteaching. And the program aligns with the follow-up program, National Geographic Reach, so your students can make a smooth transition. In the U.S.A.'s instruction is interactive. The activities engage your newcomers in rich language experiences that help them listen, speak, read, and write in English. The activities are collaborative. They ensure basic vocabulary development because there's lots of verbal activity. Guided reading instruction integrates key phonics skills that are basic to the English language, along with 90 of the most common high-frequency words that the students will need to recognize. In the U.S.A. also includes a number of online practice options. We'll talk more about these in a bit, but there are word file pictures online, interactive activities, and a digital library with many more visual resources. In the U.S.A. is for a variety of students: newly arrived non-English speakers, students who are pre-literate or are not even literate in their primary language, students with interrupted or no formal education, and students whose home language does not use the Roman alphabet. You can use In the U.S.A. with all of these types of students. In the U.S.A. includes intensive instruction in reading and writing in English for early elementary students, so students can build the literacy skills that are essential to academic success. Within the U.S.A., authentic activities engage students with rich experiences that incorporate listening, speaking, reading, and writing to build language and vocabulary skills. Students will learn over 500 new words with the support of labeled visuals and companion translations in 7 different languages. Songs and chants help newcomers engage and remember. Scaffolded supports and visual learning activities reinforce what students are learning and also support those students that are pre-literate or those from non-Roman alphabet backgrounds. Explicit early literacy instruction is scaffolded with visual support so all students can learn key phonics skills, master 90 high-frequency words, and read decodable texts. Students learn sound symbol correspondence and sight words through a comprehensive combination of teaching routines, chants and songs, and games. So they have fun as they're learning English. In the U.S.A. was developed using the best practice research base by renowned authors such as Deborah Short, Josefina Tinajero, and Lada Kratky. The images you see on this page can be found in the tab that says Best Practices and Reading Routines at the front of your teacher's edition. I encourage you to spend some time reading through these author monographs to learn some of the background for why the activities are structured the way they are in the U.S.A. Each of our authors has written an article that will help you learn how to use this program even more effectively. Let's take a look at In the U.S.A.'s student materials. There is a consumable interactive student book, a practice book, and literature big books that are used for instruction. Now let's see all the resources available to you as you teach within the U.S.A. rather. There's a teacher's edition that is comprehensive, gives you lesson plans, lots of resources, everything you need right there. There's an assessment handbook. There are sound spelling cards. And there are write-on, wipe-off boards, which also have sound boxes printed right on them. In addition, this program has many resources available online through the website found at MyNG Connect. There is a page in the front of your teacher's edition with instructions and a key code for setting up your MyNG Connect in the U.S.A. account. It's right behind the CD sleeve in the front of your teacher's edition. You'll definitely want to sign up for your account as soon as possible. We'll go into more detail with each of these resources in the context of lessons, but to give you an overview of what is available, there are word picture files, audio files, MP3 files of all the songs and chants. There's e-editions available for both the teacher and the student. The word builder is something that you are going to love and your students will really enjoy working with. We'll talk more about that when we get to the point of instruction. And the digital library accesses many of National Geographic's most compelling visual images that will help you build vocabulary and develop students' knowledge base. For now, let's take a look at the instruction. There are 10 units in the U.S.A., and they all follow the same instructional path. That's great because once you learn how the program is structured, you can then focus on the content you'll be teaching the students. Each unit begins with a unit launch. Then there are 3 consecutive parts of the unit. Each of these parts follows the similar flow. Phonics instruction is built into each part of In the U.S.A.'s instructional path. That's very important for elementary classrooms. There are a few differences in the odd and even numbered units, but the instructional path is always the same. Oops, I apologize, I got there. And finally, each unit has a writing piece element to it. There's always an activity for writing, as well as opportunities to monitor your students' progress. There are a few differences in the odd and even numbered units, but the instructional path is always the same. For phonics, there are different elements featured in the even numbered units. In the unit launch, students begin generating and manipulating language right away. in the U.S.A. goes well beyond listening and repeating to provide an interactive and dynamic approach to accelerate language acquisition and give your newcomers the tools they need to begin building conversational fluency. As each new unit is introduced, you build background and study the photographs that come with in the spread at the beginning of the unit. Then you preview the unit with your students by taking a picture walk through the entire unit and learning about the unit project. That's in the lower right-hand corner of the student's book. You also begin work on a class concept map that will reinforce concepts developed during the unit. It will be added to as lessons progress. Students will later use it to guide their conversations and their writing. Take a look at the In This Unit box found at the top right corner of the student's book, page 3. It's in your teacher's edition too. This red box helps students know what they will learn and practice, reading, writing, listening, and speaking over the course of the unit. The language skills that will be taught are identified. For example, this is Unit 1, which works on giving personal information, making introductions, and giving information. Vocabulary that's going to be covered is listed here as well. In this particular unit, it's greetings and goodbyes, numbers and number words, family words, polite words, and places. So they get to see the categories of the words that they'll be learning. The words, letters and sounds, and print concepts that are introduced are also listed, as well as the writing skills that will be worked upon during the unit. Now let's take a look at the planner for Part 1 of Unit 1. Remember, the structure of each part of each unit stays the same. So while specific activities and content change, you and your students can become familiar with the instructional flow and focus on the content. First, you'll work on language skills. Then, you'll focus on building vocabulary. And finally, you'll put the skills together to build reading capacity. And finally, you'll complete a wrap-up activity to review and make sure your students are on track with the skills you've taught. Notice the key at the bottom of your teacher's page in the U.S.A. lets you know exactly which skills are tested using the different tools. And to help you keep the big picture in mind, there's a key at the bottom to let you know where you are within the unit. Let's take a closer look at the instructional path. Parts 1, 2, and 3 follow the same path, though the specific number of lessons for each area may vary slightly from unit to unit. Let's take a look at how the lessons flow in Unit 1, Part 1. Each part begins with try-out language lesson. This usually includes a song or a chant or a poem. Next, students learn new vocabulary through consistent, predictable routines. The routines are always following a teach, model, practice, apply flow, and they stay the same throughout the unit's lessons, so students have ample time to learn, practice, and take responsibility to use their new skills in action. The routines are found within your lesson plans, but also up front in your teacher's edition in the tab that says Best Practices and Reading Routines. We'll talk more about those as we go through the lessons. Then, after the vocabulary lessons, students learn specific language functions, such as giving personal information or asking and answering questions. Students also learn high-frequency words through a consistent, predictable routine. Then there's focus on specific letters and sounds, the phonics skills, also using routines and building on a progression of skills through the units. And in each unit, each part of the unit, you'll end with a wrap-up lesson that allows your students to apply their new language in a motivating way. The wrap-up lesson is different for each of the 3 parts. For example, part 1, it's a game. Part 2, it's a theme theater. And part 3, it's a listen and read along with a big book. Let's look at each of the lesson types. Tryout language lessons allow students to start generating and manipulating language right away in a safe, risk-free context. The lesson starts by building background and tapping into students' prior knowledge. Then students listen to a song or a chant using appropriate vocabulary words. You can play this on the CD or from the website using the MP3 files. This lesson also gives students the opportunity to make the chant or song their own by framing words or phrases that can be changed. At the bottom of this page, student page, you will see additional options that are provided to help with this process. So instead of saying see you in class, they might say see you after school or see you at lunch. And this allows students to make their own chants. The vocabulary lessons, again, follow the teach, model, practice, apply format and uses consistent routines, as we've talked about, to introduce the words. First, we will tap prior knowledge. A simple action or activity is used to see what students already know about these words and keep them actively engaged. We'll check for known words. You'll have students work with partners to identify words they might already know as you read them aloud. And you can monitor for prior knowledge and to make sure students are comfortable and engaged in the process. In the U.S.A. makes every attempt to keep the students' affective filters as low as possible. What that means is that we want to keep students comfortable and not have their anxiety high or tap into self-esteem issues that they might have from not speaking the English language. So we want to keep our activities as low anxiety as possible so that we don't have to make too many corrections that also raise their affective filter and lower their self-esteem at the same time. Then we present the words. We define the category, we connect the words and visuals, we say and use the words, we read greetings. We define the category. For example, this one uses special words to say hello and goodbye. We connect the words and the visuals. We say and use the words. And then we read greetings and goodbyes. We put those words that we're learning into practice. Then we focus more specifically on practicing and extending the learning. We'll use the greetings and goodbyes by using a simple action. This little pin note is in the student's book too, so it gives them instructions on what they need to do and how they need to do it. And they'll act out things. We want them actively engaged so that they're using their kinesthetic senses as well. There's also, you'll notice throughout your teacher's edition, little red arrows. Those are indicators for you to check to see if students have difficulty, and that always gives you a suggestion of what to do. Then we brainstorm greetings and goodbyes to extend the learning. Now's a good time to draw our attention to the teaching routines. Remember, these are located in the front of your teacher's edition behind the Best Practices and Reading Routines tab. They're always listed step by step in your lesson plan, but it's nice to have them their entirety up front so that you can get familiar with all of the different routines that there are. There are 5 different routines for vocabulary, there's 6 different ones for reading, and there's even a routine for writing. Be sure to spend some time after this session to become familiar with all of these routines. At the end of the vocabulary lessons, there's typically suggestions for putting language in action. And for these activities, you'll typically use a cooperative learning structure. This particular one uses the inside-outside circle structure. Or there might be a technology application suggested to practice the skill that enables students to actively participate in using their new language skills. All of the cooperative learning structures are explained on page PD26 in the Best Practices section of your Teacher's Edition. The number of vocabulary lessons varies across the unit. You'll want to do a thorough preview of the lessons prior to teaching them. But here are a few features you'll notice as you become more familiar with vocabulary lessons within the U.S.A. The students have access to direction icons and partnering opportunities in their book. Even if they can't read the directions, students can easily see what they are expected to do by looking at the direction icons found at the top of their page. Students have frequent opportunities to apply what they've learned, which helps them own their new language and patterns. These push-pin notebook pages let students know it's time to work with a partner, allowing them to try out the new language in a safe and supportive context. This feature is available, and the next ones that we'll be talking about are available in your Teacher's Edition. Additional vocabulary routines are available for extending learning. These are found in the front of your Teacher's Edition behind the Best Practices and Research tab. Differentiated instruction suggestions are built right into your Teacher's Edition wherever you see this sidebar. And at the end of each lesson, there is a Check Understanding box at the bottom of the page in the Teacher's Edition. These quick checks help you gauge where students are in mastering the day's lesson. Next, let's look at language function lessons. These lessons use your audio CD or the MP3 files. You will introduce the language function as a context for grammar forms. This is a research-proven way to accelerate language development. You'll tap prior knowledge, introduce the patterns, and model the patterns. The resources you need are always listed right for you with the specific track that you need to find. One thing that you'll want to make note of are the Write It, Say It, Listen and Say icons for audio support. These you'll find throughout your book and give you different ways to have students practice the skills. Notice how scaffolding is gradually removed as lessons progress so students can apply and practice on their own. First we teach, we tap prior knowledge, we introduce the pattern, then we model, we give them examples, we have them repeat, and we practice together, guided practice, and then students apply by working with one another. So this gradual release model of scaffolded support accelerates students to higher levels of language production. And as always, there's a Check Understanding box so that you can do a quick check and see if you need to repeat the process. Let's talk about how high-frequency words are taught. These words are introduced and practiced following the scaffolded instructional flow of teach, model, practice, and apply. So we teach the concepts of print. This element progresses throughout the unit and for each subsequent unit to build students' readiness for print concepts and support their acquisition of high-frequency words in English. We teach the words, following a set routine, of course. This is where high-frequency words are introduced and modeled. You'll want to pay close attention to the teacher supports for cultural perspectives and for the differentiation options. This is especially helpful if you have a range of languages or student abilities within your Newcomers class. We practice and apply using the gradual release of scaffolding, just as we've done with the other lessons. We build sentences using the word builder and or letter cards, word cards. We practice spelling the new words. We use the new words with partners. And we check students' understanding. This lesson uses the write-on wipe-off boards to consolidate what students have learned while you check their progress. To teach letters and sounds, the phonics skills, students experience visual cues and hands-on practice to build their awareness of these sounds and spellings in English. We build phonological awareness, the ability to hear those sounds, using Elkonian boxes and chips. The write-on wipe-off boards have those boxes built right in, or you can create a master model for them. We teach sounds and spellings using a reading routine to introduce them. You'll definitely need to differentiate instruction for the range of students in your class, and so you can see the teacher wrap box with suggestions for different language background students. Remember, when you're teaching these sounds and spellings, you're going to work all the way through one sound, before you move to the next. So if we're teaching the sound, we would build phonological awareness and then introduce the sound spelling before we go back up and teach the sound for mm. In the letters and sound lessons, students experience visual cues and hands-on practice. There are multiple options for practicing the sounds and spellings to get students writing, speaking, and applying using word masters. Then each part of a unit has a wrap-up activity. This particular one, for part one of a unit, it's a game, which is a purposeful instructional activity. Students get the opportunity to synthesize and apply their new language in an engaging context. It's motivating and keeps their affective filters low. You do a little bit of a review first, and then you model how to play the game, and then students actually work with partners or small groups to play the game. You want to make sure that you differentiate to help all students have an active role in the game. There are teacher supports in the wrap-up that provide you ways of tracking progress and ensuring your students' successful mastery of skills. Remember the differentiated boxes that you've seen throughout the unit. You'll see those in the end of the unit as well, in the wrap-up sections of the unit. There's always a suggested way to debrief and extend students' learning. And there are project checkpoints that give you an idea of where students might be in their progress on different projects. And as always, there is a check understanding box that gives you a quick way to assess their mastery. In part two of your unit, the wrap-up activity is a theme theater. This follows a specific reading routine, theme theater script, that's in your teacher's guide and lesson plan, or also up front. It's Reading Routine 3 on PD 18. And Part 3's wrap-up is listen and read along to the big book. So you can see how the wrap-up activities vary, but each one of them helps students review what they've learned and go beyond echoing and manipulating general language to generate purposeful language at much higher levels. Again, this one uses a reading routine. Then finally, each unit has a writing section at the end of the unit. Scaffolded writing helps newcomers be successful with the foundations of writing in English and provides many opportunities for students to share their writing with partners. This helps students learn that writing is something that is meant to be shared at times. In writing lessons, students learn about sentences. You'll always introduce a skill and practice a skill. In this case, it's capitalization and punctuation. Then they write. You introduce the project for them. You provide a model of the writing to study together. Then students write and check their understanding, check their writing against the model. This really helps them understand that models are useful, but that they can have their own spin on their writing. It really helps them to express themselves. There's always a writing project checklist that helps you know if the student has mastered the skills of this writing project, but also helps the student know as well. Now let's look at the assessment tools that are available for you in the U.S.A. Assessment Handbook. There are tools to help you monitor students' progress. There's language development tests, literacy unit tests, and language function rubrics. You'll use a literacy unit test every other unit. It tests 2 units at a time. There's also a summative assessment, an end-of-level test that helps you gauge students' overall progress from the skills that were introduced in the U.S.A., and that will help you understand where they might need to be placed into the program REACH or into another program that you might be using to help them build their reading skills. It tests language development and literacy. In addition to those tools, there are other assessment tools. There's practice tests that familiarize your students with multiple choice item format and how to mark answers. Many of them may have never been exposed to this sort of testing before. There's a native language literacy check that helps you determine whether a student is pre-literate or literate in a language with a non-Roman alphabet. There's also an English language profile that aids you in determining a student's English skill level in the areas of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Let's take a closer look at the different assessment options for Unit 1 so that you will have a better understanding of the progress monitoring tools within each unit. There are language development assessments, language function assessments, retelling, learning to read, and reteaching options. It's kind of nice to have it all summarized right there for you. These tools are found in the assessment handbook and also online through MyNG Connect. We've learned a lot in the last half hour. Let's revisit our session outcomes. We've identified each program's component and its purpose. Hopefully, you now understand the instructional path and lesson structure for in the U.S.A. And you have likely learned how the assessment tools can be used to inform your instruction within the U.S.A. Remember, our overall goal for today's session was to increase your knowledge of in the U.S.A. so you'd be ready to get into your classroom and begin using it with your students. You'll definitely want to spend some time after this session going through each of the components, getting to know them in a little bit more depth, and also getting to become more familiar with your teacher's edition, going through the lesson plans. You'll see how it's structured to make your job easier and to help your students learn language skills. Thank you for attending this National Geographic Learning session.